My argument back is I am a tax-paying citizen. I belong in the voting booth, period. Period. That is where I lose my mind. And people will say maybe I'm a little bit crazy. I don't care because I'm still a tax-paying citizen and I still have the right to vote. And just because you have your private club, I don't care.
This is a voting rights issue. Forget the outcome of whether it's going to produce moderation or it's going to better represent this person or that person. Just go back to the simple issue of the right to vote.
Lisa Rice is one of those names, especially when she had so much success of the 73% in a city that is overwhelmingly Democrat. I mean, that is a city that the establishment is fighting tooth and nail to keep open primaries from happening. And so the fight that she's doing is very impressive.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Independent Voter Podcast. We have a very special guest this week. For those of you who follow this show, you're probably election wonks and reform, how difficult it is. It's, from the battles in Maine to those in California. And there's few places, I should say, that, tackle a couple reforms at the same time, but also highlight just the real difficulty of not just passing it, but implementing it and how the hurdles can get in the way. So a lot of you may know the name Lisa Rice. She's our special guest. I'll let her do some of her own introductions, but what I can say is I watched some of the testimony you gave the other day out in DC, and I was just like, wow, this is an incredible, and it really does just highlight how nonpartisan reform is and how much it really just puts the issue, puts on the table that this is really a battle between voters and folks that on any side of the aisle that are kind of just like the way things are because, well, that's how they got elected. So, Lisa, why don't you give a little background on all the hard work you've been doing and really what battle you're engaged in right now?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Look, I come into this reform effort in DC, which started in 23 with a longer, like most of us, long runway. I've been involved in the national democracy reform movement since 2016 when I joined Unite America as an advisor and have been on the board since 2017. So looking at reforms that put voters first on a national basis and seeing the scope and seeing what works and not works. And when I became committed to the movement, I had realized that being hyperpartisan was not for me and decided to what I call divorce myself from the party. And I did that in 2017. I didn't realize that I'd disenfranchised myself. So when my husband, still a partisan, received his ballot in the mail, we're in Washington, D.C., everyone gets a ballot by default. Hey, where's my ballot? I called the Board of Elections. Like, hey, something's wrong. Oh, no, ma'am, you don't get a ballot because you don't belong to a party. And it was at that time I uttered a couple of curse words.
Welcome to the reform space.
Yeah.
Exactly. And said, wait, this doesn't make any sense. And so I had to go through this whole, on a personal level, I'm still the person that I was. Simply leaving a political party should not disenfranchise me from being able to vote in the most consequential elections where I live. And that is the primary in DC. And so I thought, well, what can I do? I don't know. Maybe somebody else will do something. I don't know what to do. And I'm looking around and nobody's doing anything. Hey, what's happening?
Right. And that's one of the difficult in reform spaces. A lot of people see it through the lens as what's wrong with the system, right? We all see there's hyperpartisanship. There's these, we feel like there's having this discussion between two parties and fights that like everybody kind of doesn't remember. But if you take a step back, like the point you're making is like, this is a voting rights issue. Forget the outcome of whether it's going to produce moderation or it's going to better represent this person or that person. Just go back to the simple issue of the right to vote, right?
Exactly.
What we've done, not just in DC, but all over the country, is we've delegated rights. We've made political parties the vehicles where you first have to get on the vehicle and then you get to participate politically. And really, the question that you're asking and you've been pushing in DC and folks like us have been and all over the country, whether it's Oklahoma or California or Florida, and no, more people coming to the sense saying, wait a second, we have all this national attention on all these primaries and who's going to win and who's going to be on the ballot. But we've taken millions of Americans who care about our elections and say, "Wait, you just have to wait." Like you don't get a you don't get a choice yet, right? And you've gone into the lion's den. You're in Washington D.C., right?
Yeah.
And said, "I'm not only going to advocate for open primaries where everybody gets a voice at the first stage, but I'm also going to introduce more options and ranked choice voting in the general election." So you've kind of taken on two fights at once in the lion's den. And I just want to get from your perspective is what has it opened your eyes? You got your eyes open when you got your ballot the first time as an independent. What
Yeah.
has this fight opened up in your perspective of how we can actually fix the system?
Yeah. So, the biggest thing for me is realizing that many politicians, and especially in places where one party or another, doesn't matter, team red or team blue, Oklahoma, DC, whatever, wherever they are entrenched and have a foothold, forget it. They don't want anyone to play. And my argument back is I am a tax-paying citizen. I belong in the voting booth, period. Period. There's not, I mean, that is where I'd lose my mind. And people will say maybe I'm a little bit crazy. I don't care because I'm still a tax-paying citizen and I still have the right to vote. And just because you have your private club, I don't care. I really don't care.
Mhm.
I could,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah, and you were able to take on such a strong partisan institutional force in DC. I mean, when we call DC a one-party city, it
Oh,
is a one-party city.
it is.
Republicans' registration only makes up, I think, the single digits in that
Yeah,
city.
5% maybe.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
but you were able to propose Initiative 83 back in 2024, ranked choice voting, open primaries, 73% of voters. And so for
Yeah.
people listening, there are still people listening who are thinking, how do we overcome these strong institutional forces to push these type of reforms? Well, you managed it. Like, so what do you tell those people?
So I first of all say you cannot come in with a proposed solution and not have a problem that isn't based in what everyday people are experiencing, right? You can't just say, oh, I have this fancy political science solution for whatever. That is not the way to win it. And in DC, there had been a proposal, um, legislation in 2021 for ranked choice voting, and it didn't make it out of the committee for political reasons. Those folks heard that I was, mumbling to myself, oh my God, I've got to do something. I've got to be able to vote. And I absolutely refused to switch back to the Democratic Party. And there are people still today. We just had our primary yesterday. They do what they call the kabuki dance. 20 days before the Democratic primary, they switch from being an independent to, registering as a Democrat, and then today, they're gonna switch back. This is insanity.
Yeah, well, imagine if any of these were like, okay, you had to do that because you're a black voter or because you're a woman or because you're if
Exactly.
we did that, if we put those hurdles in front of anybody on any other kind of classification, we'd say that's preposterous, right?
Yes.
But when it comes to registering as an independent, it's like, oh, that's okay because they didn't, they're not a part of a party and we just take it for granted. And I think what you're frustrated about is like how why is this not like an more easily solved and agreed upon issue?
Right, we combine the 2 and that we sort of got into that discussion a little bit, I wanna bring it back, and again, what are the grassroots issues in your state, in your district, that aren't being solved by the politicians? And in DC, we had a few things, and let me tell you, the folks who had introduced and done the grassroots work for years that developed into the ranked choice voting movement, they were based in food security. And there were food deserts in the district, if you can believe this, in your nation's capital. There are places where people can't get to a grocery store in either walking or even comfortable walking distance. And so they went into those communities and said they were doing their food thing, right? They were and they weren't even doing the politics thing, but what people kept saying is that, these people don't represent me. And then it was this circle of, well, I don't even vote anymore because why vote? Because they don't do anything I need. Cycle after cycle. And having those conversations in community is what led those folks to introduced the ranked choice voting and work, the legislation back in 2021. I'm here on the side doing my crazy thing going, damn it, I am not becoming a partisan again. I'm not going to
Hmm.
do it. And I'm going to find a way to vote. And so they came to me and said, we want to do a ballot initiative, but we want to enfranchise people also. We think that the way to go is do the Alaska model.
Hmm.
This is and they also said, we think the only way we can do this is take it to the people. And I said, well, I'll do it, but we definitely have to have some sort of open primary component of it. And in DC, we cannot get rid of partisan primaries, but we can do the next best thing, which is have semi-open primaries. And so, a revolution was born in 2023. We've been through court cases. We finally won our final court case. It's insane. A week before the primary. I mean, talk about
Yeah.
nail biting.
Well, that must have been like a mix of emotions going into Tuesday for you, because on one hand, the city's getting ranked choice voting for the first time, so half of your initiative is playing out, but the other half, you're an independent voter. You're still shut out. I know you mobilized some voters to go out to these polling locations with the sign that we've seen other open primary advocates use in closed primary states, saying, "I can't vote in this election. Ask me why." Did you have people come up to you and ask you why? Maybe some people who voted for Initiative 83
Yeah.
who might be confused.
Yes, and that is, byproduct, benefit, I don't know, you choose it, but that's what happened yesterday.
Mhm.
And we have early voting and mail-in ballots, so a lot of people have been asking me, my DMs are full, "Lisa, I got my ballot and all I have is this special election," because we have a special election that was concurrent. "Where's my big ballot?" We won. Yes, we won, but the council chose not to fund a semi-open primaries, and that's what we're doing now. And for every other person in DC that's taking a nap today after the primary, not me, because the 23rd is the budget vote, and it'll be the second time we're going to try to get the council to approve this. I hope that maybe a couple of people have softened because they, had very positive outcomes for their primaries, so maybe they're feeling a little good. Maybe they will, vote yes, but yeah, it's insane, and we did have that little picket. It was at a voting center called Thicket, so we called it the Picket at the Thicket. And,
Nice.
so we had the Picket at the Thicket. We had Alberto Ramos, who is the CEO of Veterans for All Voters, with
Mhm.
us. We had Carlos de Peltet Castro with us. Carlos is the head of the Latino caucus for the Forward Party. We had Ann Stauffer, who is the co-president of the League of Women Voters of DC. We had an incredible independent activist named Tanya Hutchins. Alberto brought his daughter. I mean, we had a blast, and news was there. I had a first news hit at 5:32 a.m., and they said, "Oh, we heard you're doing something later." I was like, "Yeah, stick around." So what we thought would be like a very time-constrained picket ended up, I think I had 3 separate interviews before. I had to go to the trunk of my car, get my get my sign. I had a new version of the sign for this year. And, so from about 9 o'clock until the official picket began. Oh, no, I think I had an interview at, like, 8:30, but until the official picket began at 9:30, I had 3 separate news interviews, and then we had our picket, and we have a song. I commissioned a go-go band here in DC to do to do a sign for us because we're doing social media ads to,
Mhm.
target these, legislators, and so, yeah, so we had a speaker out there with our own song, and we did the thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just a testament. You get out there, and that's what the voters really want. They really want change. I mean, you pass something you can't pass, whether you want to eat dinner at 73% of the vote. So I give you congratulations
Thank
on that. I know you're running up on time because a lot of people want to talk to you. So just to close it out, you have something you'd want to tell our audience who's watching these things going on across the country, maybe a piece of optimism or something in all this that
you.
you'd like to share? How can they support what you're doing?
Well, if they wanna support us, go to growdemocracydc.org, hit the donate button or the get involved button. Either one will help. But what I wanna say to the folks who are out there and feel isolated, alone, and this feeling of I can't do this. You're right, you can't do it by yourself. You have to be in community. Find like-minded individuals, and they are out there. 1 in 5 voters in DC are not affiliated with a party. The chances of someone having breast cancer is 1 in 8 or 1 in 9. So there are more of us out here. And the point I'm making is that we don't talk about it because we're in such a place with 75% hyperpartisan Democrats. But we're out here and you have to talk about not being a partisan because when you're in this environment, people are a little shy, a little afraid maybe to let somebody know, "No, I'm not one of them." But the minute you start opening up, then you find more people. I met so many people that I thought were partisan. They're like, "Are you kidding me? I'm not." But I don't talk about it.
Right.
You have to be able to talk about it. Then you find yourself in a community of people that want change. And I always say, and I say this every time I testify, this is about voters. And all voters deserve the right to cast a ballot, and especially in taxpayer-funded elections. And if they don't fund it, the next step, I'm not saying it would be me, but I would not put it past someone to sue the Democratic Party and say, "Well, then pay for your own damn primaries."
Well,
And
there
then
you go.
it
Well,
won't be me. I'm not a litigious person, but
well, yeah, we could go on all day. IVP has been very involved in these kind of lawsuits, and so hopefully we can have you back on. I know you got to get going. It's been great to have you. I mean, you are one of the shining lights in the reform space. We can't, for those of us who wake up thinking about this stuff, can't say thank you enough for just continuing it. And I know you still have a ways to go there. I'm confident you're going to get them to open it up like they should. And I thank you for your time. And hopefully we can have you back again. Go check out what they're doing. Come back to the Independent Voter podcast, and we'll have Lisa on again and other folks who are working on this across the country. So thank you for joining us on this episode, and we'll
you're
talk to you all
welcome.
again soon.
Thank you for inviting me. I was so flattered. I was like, "Me? Of course. I would love to come back."
You're
I'm
like a
I'm
champion of it. Like we're
Yeah.
like, heck yeah, Lisa's
Yeah,
coming
we're the
on.
ones who were excited. We were, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really happy to talk about it because, again, folks have to realize they are not alone, and that is what I realized 10 years ago. I thought that I was alone. I thought I was a misfit. I thought there weren't other people like me who just we're interested in the voters. We want the voters to vote. But the more you talk about it, the more you'll find there are so many people, but we all end up feeling like we're isolated. And the minute you start building that community, then you get strength from one another. So those are my words of wisdom for today.
I love it. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you again soon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
That was fun. I mean, I've being in this space, I've always heard of Lisa, and a lot of people talked about how great she is and stuff. But it was cool to finally meet her and like actually get the inside look at what's going on in DC.
Yeah, I feel, there's certain people who are gaining like celebrity status within the election reform space, particularly among us who are very much in the nuances of this. So it's kind of like me and Catherine Gale, or, like again, Lisa Rice is one of those names, especially when she had so much success of the 73% in a city that is overwhelmingly Democrat. I mean, that is a city that the establishment is fighting tooth and nail to keep open primaries from happening. And so the fight that she's doing is very impressive.
Right. And I mean, I think what she proved is if you can break the conversation beyond the political bubble into the electorate itself, like
Yeah.
that's where you get the explosion and you win, right? It's the political forces that try to keep that conversation contained, right? So
Hmm.
that it doesn't get out. And I think they're going to have a harder and harder time, every year that goes forward of keeping that conversation contained. Because I just, you can kind of feel the progress and kind of the moment in time. And right, who knows if it's going to kind of explode next year or 5 years or 10 years from now. But I'm pretty confident because there's people like Lisa out there that this is just ripe for explosion.
Well, and so like, I mean, we saw 2024 wasn't a very good year for reform, a lot of losses, but Lisa's was the big one. And I feel like her campaign really showed where other campaigns need improvement. So you're seeing other groups try this again in Colorado. We're seeing Courageous Colorado seek another nonpartisan primary initiative going into 2028. And what they did was start out at the community level. They did a 20-site community buildup, right, of talking to these people about what they need for more courageous and more representative leadership. And that's, I think that's where it starts. Again, taking it to voters to break out of the central control that the establishment has over the narrative. So.
Well, we got a lot going on this week. We are announcing a new partnership with the Fulcrum and the Latino News Network. We got some updates going on the website. Ethan, who's not on here today, has had some viral posts again going going out online, and so we're having fun over here. For those of you joining in, as always, we thank you. As stay tuned. You've seen some of the stuff that's been progressing on the website and on the social media. We got a lot more coming, so keep coming back. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Send it along to your friends. Sayonara from Independent Voter Project. Thank you.
This is the Independent Voter Podcast, sponsored by the Independent Voter Project and produced by OLAS Media. Remember, you can always find the Independent Voter Podcast or the How It Really Works series at ivn.us. Follow and subscribe at olasmedia.com.
OLAS Media.